Hello and welcome to another free code session. My name is Jason Bach, and tonight I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to go off the beaten path and talk about project setup. And I'll explain why in a moment. I've realized that I have a fair amount of projects out there, things that I've been working on and things that I've been doing, rocks, some stuff in CSLA with analyzers, the auto many profiler, and a lot of ideas either I'm not finishing or things that I just say, oh, I'll fix that later, and I never get around to it. One in particular today, a guy that I'm working with at a client, he was having problems with a setup in MOQ where he made the call on in his code under test, and it was saying it couldn't find an expectation. And he's like, well, the message isn't really that helpful. I said, well, what else would it tell you? It's telling you can't find the expectation. There's really nothing else it could tell you. And the problem was that he had a type A where he was doing the setup and a type B where the code under test was. They had the same exact name, but they were under different namespaces. So of course it's not going to work. But the message coming back only shows you the type names, not the full type names of the namespace. And so the message was really confusing, even though it was doing it wasn't telling him incorrect information. And so I thought, well, what does rocks do if you call a method that doesn't have a expectation set? I found out, oh, there was a not implemented exception, which is really weird. The funny thing is that I already have an issue in GitHub for that, to create a custom exception that tells you, hey, you tried to call a method, or you tried to use a property that there's no handler there for it. So it's kind of funny because I realized, yeah, I need to really get to some of these things. The nice thing is I have a plethora of video ideas I can do. And there's no shortage of stuff to play with and have fun with. In fact, I tried recording this video the first time, and I ran into a really weird issue, which is I would make a .NET Core project, and it would say I didn't have 2.2 SDK installed. Well, if I would do .NET New Console from the command line and .NET Run, that worked just fine. It was 2.2. I had 2.2 installed. I'm like, what's going on? Finally realized somehow I got a global JSON file in the repos directory that Visual Studio uses as default. If you just say like new console app 1 or whatever it is, that was pointing to 2.1.3, and so it was saying, well, that's the SDK you should be using. So why are you trying to use 2.2? It was just like, oh my god, that was so frustrating. So I had to stop. I uninstalled some SDKs. I made sure I was up to the latest version of 2017. I was like, do I need to wipe my machine? I mean, is my machine completely hosed in some really weird, subtle way that I don't get? And finally, I dug through it and realized that's what happened. And now I can make a new project in Visual Studio, and it's targeting 2.2, so everything's good. All right, so what is it that I want to talk about in this video? It's project setup. And it's not a lot of things, but they're things that I think people are just not taking advantage of in Visual Studio to address some easy things and also address maybe some not so easy things. And so what do I mean by that? Well, coding style is one of them. It's something that you should never fail a code review for, because people should just be following a standard. But you don't need hour and hour, just on and on discussions about how do we format code. Pick a way to do it and just do it. And just be consistent. Okay. And now in Visual Studio, it supports editorconfig, so just make an editorconfig. I wrote a tool called editorconfig generator, which will generate one based on what it sees in your code. Visual Studio has that capability now too. So just do that. Stop fighting over if you like var or not. Now explain why it's easy to add to a new project and just get all the changes in there. Okay? So that's one. Treating warnings as errors and then using analyzers. Setting those up gets you a lot of like automated code review things in place so that you don't necessarily have to have somebody, when they're doing a code review, worry about, did they do this or did they do that? It's already in place. Okay, so here's just the way I set up projects, and maybe there's a way to do this with making like a template or something, but this is just what I do all the time. Okay, so we're going to go here, and we're going to call this picky project, and I'm going to delete it once I'm done with the video. Just to illustrate how I do things. Okay. Now before I do anything else, let's make sure that it is edit. It is 2.2. I say run. Hey, it works. Good. All right, that was much better than the last time where I fell into a black hole of what is going on here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is go to the solution and say that, and then we're going to come over here, and we're just going to grab this one, which has kind of become like my default standard. Okay, so now when I come back, you'll notice that's going to say, if it picks it up right, yes, it's a red line. Notice though that even though it's an error in the error list, if I say build, it still succeeds. I posted this on Twitter today. This is actually mid-March, which is why I'm not using 2019 yet, even though by the time this video comes out, it will probably be 2019 a release. So the point is that apparently in 2019, like 0.1, it's like, what is it now? 15 or no? It will be 16.1. That'll actually be the version number. That they may have finally got it in so that an editor config setting, when it's set to error like this is, will actually fail the build. Or there'll be a way to actually say do that, go that far. And some people don't want to do that. I do. I just want to say, hey, if you're not following the standard here, which is if you can make an expression body member, then, whoops, not that, make an expression body member. But also, okay, notice this is what sometimes people miss, is if you, no, come on, there we go. Notice I'm going over here down at the bottom of document, project, and solution. If you've got a problem that you ran into, okay, you want to say just apply it everywhere. So maybe I have an old code base that I want to standardize in some stylings. You can put an editor config in, say solution, put it across the entire solution. This is the only case of it, but boom, there, it's done. And everybody's following the standard. Okay. So that's the first thing. Do editor configs. In fact, if I did something like, var x is equal to args.length, okay, but if I do int, this should actually throw an error, yeah, because I like using var. You may like using, whatever it is. So use var. So now notice that you also get the refactoring offer, which is to use the explicit type. So I notice though that they don't have like do this everywhere. Let's try this. If I say like, and like, zag void foo, var y is equal to 42. Use it. Now I'm starting to get, hey, this could be a more, oh, this is an unused variable. Stop being so smart. Return y plus 22. Okay, now you should say use explicit type. Okay, in this case it doesn't, so that's a little disappointing. I thought this would basically say, hey, anywhere where you're saying use explicit type, but if I say int here, and now I get solution. And it changed them, I think both. Okay, so point is, use editor config as soon as you make a new project. Okay, you're just going to be in a much better spot. All right, so anyway, here's another setting. Here's another thing I always do. Because I don't have to care about tabs being set, because I love tabs, and my editor config always has that. Here's yet another thing. Treat warnings as errors. True. There are things that are compiler warnings that if they're warnings, you don't see them here. More to the point, well, you'll see them here as warnings, but you won't see them as errors. And so they don't stop the build. And what do people do when they see a red light or a yellow light? They floor it, they don't stop. So the point is, if I had like public class bar, I don't care, private read-only int value. Now, if I remember right, maybe it doesn't do this for this one. I thought it would. It's saying build failed. Oh, of course you don't say why though. There, okay. It took a second to show up. There, okay. Speedy compiler. But it did the right thing eventually, which is the field bar is never used. Okay. So, well, okay, fine. Now I'm being told I gotta do something. So I'll say bar and value, this dot value, which I think this is also why. Yes, I meant the same. Did you mean something else? This is one of the reasons, but there's other reasons why I like saying this dot value, because it makes it clear. Okay, so now I say build again, and it succeeded. That was actually kind of surprising, because I thought what it would do is, wow, that was not what I expected it to do at all. I was hoping to say use block body. Okay, so if I say Rx is equal to value, and then I say this dot value is equal to value, what I should hopefully see, okay, that's a little surprising. Come on. I thought what it would tell is, hey, you're assigning to a local variable that's never being used. Yeah. Be that as it may, that was giving an error. Okay. Maybe in this case it'll do it. I thought there was a rule that said, not a rule, a compiler warning that would, well, that's the one down there. Okay. Oh well. So that one isn't doing quite what I thought it would be. But compiler warnings as errors. Definitely make sure that you have that on. Okay. Just by default. Turn it on. Okay. So that's the other one. The last one I want to talk about is using analyzers. Okay. And the analyzer I'm going to show here is this. There's lots of them out there. This other one here is kind of like the newer version of what FXCOP analysis was, except it's now in Roslyn format. So you can use those if you want. I want to use this one because I just kind of ran into this one and it's kind of cute. No, just stop that. Not that. This. Okay, so we're going to say manage your packages, browse, let's install this baby. Okay. And it only has like 50,000 downloads. This should be more than that. Analyzers should be more than this because there are some really cool things. Okay, fine. Let's get rid of that. It's just going to be annoying. Okay. Let's say, I also don't like doing this. Get rid of that. Okay. Let's just say I had a public static class, foo class. Okay. And I had a public static void bar taking an object as value, okay, which doesn't do anything. Fine. I'll say public static void use bar, and I'll say foo.bar passing in 22. Now, if everything works here, yes. Value type to reference type conversion causes boxing at call site here. If I go to my error list, ha! That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Okay. What's this thing here? Bar value is never. Oh, well. Yeah, because you're not fine. Wow, that's still stuck around from the... Yeah, that didn't... Okay. I was confusing myself, which is not a hard thing to do. But you can see here, it is picked up that bar 22 is a boxing thing. And so you may go, oh, maybe I inadvertently meant to put int here and I forgot, or just whatever. And now I've saved myself a boxing allocation, which you can say, well, we're talking bytes here. I've got gigabytes of memory on my machine. Why should I care? The point is, if you're already told this right now as you're coding, it never makes it anywhere farther than this. If you know you've made a mistake, why not fix it right away? Okay. Here's another one. Let's say I had, we'll make it params of int values. Should also show you that I don't use params a lot. Now look. Calling into a function with params. This results in an array allocation, even if no parameter is passed in for the params parameter. So what's saying is even if you do this, you're still allocating an empty array. Now, one thing that's interesting is that there is array empty, okay, of int. And that, I'm glad it did this, okay. Let's just make sure if I come over here, yeah, it goes away. This is actually one thing I was going to just do, which I thought of as, which is if I have a params array, or params parameter, and I'm not supposed to, no matter what I do, I'm always going to allocate an array. Well, I could say here, new int of 0, okay? And that would also get away with, but notice you got a little squiggly, little smudgy here. Explicit new array type allocation, show new fixes. Does it? No, it really doesn't give. It doesn't give the thing I was hoping for, which is, yeah, I'm allocating an array. Okay, that's the other thing that is interesting about this analyzer. So it's just telling me I'm allocating an array. What I really wish it could do is I thought there was one. I think I've seen Dustin Campbell do this, although I don't know if it ever actually made it into the box, which is to recognize if you do new t of whatever, is to change that to array of empty. Or I'm sorry, array empty. Okay. But what was interesting is that it's, notice if I said var things is equal to new string of 3, okay, it's just always going to tell you, hey, you did a new array type allocation. I personally would find that a little annoying, because then I have to come down here, and then whenever I would do that, it would say, hey, you've got it, but that's the beauty of this. See if I click on this and it actually goes anywhere. Yeah, that's helpful. Well, what you can do is come over here and say, okay, fine. What was that? That was 0501. So if I do 0501, explicit new array type allocation, I can change this. Its rule severity is default. This is a little of a like the default. So you have to go here and say the default severity is what? Info. So it's currently set to its default. Well, what's its default? It's info. And if you saw here, it's kind of hard to see, but it's a little I. Okay, you can actually set this to being none. And then if I do that to none, now notice I got a picky project rule set file being made down here. So that's what Visual Studio does to remember what your specific settings are for particular things. And now I could actually take this rule set file. Okay, if I come back up here, let's say CS project file, it should remember, yes. Now it knows, okay, here's a rule set, because these are just, if I open that up, it's going to do this view of it. But you can also show this as, open with, and if I just say like an XML editor, then you can see all these coming in, okay? And it does it by here too, and it'll have that one in there as well. So the point is that now I could rename this rule set file, put it at the solution level if I wanted to, and then just change these references so it goes to the rule set file that I will have for every single project. Okay, this is the same thing that would happen when you did code analysis, which was based on FXCOP in Visual Studio. This file would be made and you can share it across projects so you don't have to reset it every single time. It's just now it works for the analysis things that are in Visual Studio. Okay? So, the point is, when you make a new project, use editor config files, set warnings as errors to true, and start looking at analyzer projects like the heap allocation analyzer one that I found. The other one that I had here, this is the one that's basically the FXCOP analyzers reimagined. Sonar Cube, they have like their sonar source stuff that's also in analyzers, and you can take a look at some of those and see if they're helpful or not. And that's the thing, you can pick and choose with those as well. You can write your own too. We talked about that before. So that's what I do in every project, because now I've got this set. So as I'm typing, as I'm doing things, you know, as I add stuff in my code base, I'm getting things formatted, set up the right way. I'm finding issues like maybe allocations that I made that I wasn't expecting, or I do a boxing that I didn't know about that was hidden somewhere in code. I'm told about these things and I get that immediate feedback. That's what I love about these analyzers. And that's why I still talk about them, and I will continue to talk about them, because any type of code analysis, it's a form of a test that is automated. So it's not even a unit test. You know, maybe it's like a level below a unit test, and that's like, there's tons of these because they're going on all the time with your code, and they're all automatic. They're all automatic. Okay, so that's my advice to you as a .NET developer, to kind of do these initial setups, and anything to let you know problems, the sooner the better. It's a good thing in my book. So that's all I'm going to talk about in this episode. I don't know, I'm going to talk about the next one, but like I said, there's lots of things to talk about. So thanks for watching. Leave your comments and questions below. See you in the next episode.